The New York Post is reporting that out of the 37,000 9/11 workers, 2,500 of them have cancer. So we've got some more info for you on this. Last year, 1,140 cases of cancer were reported among ground zero responders and rescuers, but the number now has grown to over 2,500. 9/11 workers suffer from cancers at a much greater rate than the general population, specifically lung cancer, prostate cancer, thyroid cancer, and leukemia. So far, the VCF, which is the Victim Compensation Fund, has awarded 115 cancer patients with a total of $50.5 million, in sums ranging from $400,000 to $4.1 million. So, you know, when you think about 9/11, obviously you think about the thousands of people that died, you think about the families that have to live with the grief, that kind of stuff. And the responders, sort of like, you know, people that fight wars across the world, they come home and then we kind of forget about them. Shouldn't we be hearing a lot more about this?
Yes, but why would they put these people in the spotlight? Because it just makes everyone, and I'm not saying I feel this way, I'm saying this is why I think that we don't. Yeah. It brings up a terrible memory in our very recent history. It makes people feel bad because they feel powerless. And it doesn't shine I mean, I don't really know how this would be the government's fault. I mean, I was there, I was a few blocks up, it was, you know, a horrible, horrible day. But people running into danger knew that there are risks running into danger. So everyone feels so powerless. I mean, and as far as cancers go, these are pretty much the worst. Yeah. Prostate cancer, thyroid cancer, these have a very, very low rate of survival. Yeah. So I just don't know what, I don't necessarily know what the point is, and I don't mean it like that. I don't know how it benefits people because there's nothing we can do except what? Give them money.
Right. So So we're giving them money, but of course we could probably give them better medical care. Right. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we probably can do that have nothing to do with money. Just one little anecdotal thing. I was in New York City also on 9/11, and I lived on 90th and 1st, which if you know anything about New York City, that's pretty far. Yeah. That's pretty far. I lived on the far Upper East Side. Literally about 3 hours after the planes hit, you could smell the burning debris. You could smell, and there was stuff in the air, which went on for days. But I mean so I'm talking about something that was extremely far from where it happened. So these people who were right in the thick of it, sadly none of this is surprising. Why don't we do better for these people?
Well, I think it's sort of like the VA scandal, where we want these people to, we tout them and we say we appreciate your service and everything, but we're going to totally fuck you over and then we're going to ignore you and forget about you. And I'm not saying we have done that entirely, but for the most part that's what we do. And one thing that I would like, whenever we talk about the ground zero responders and the cancer rates and all that, is to remind people that the Bush administration EPA chief, Christy Todd Whitman, said 3 days after the attacks that the air is perfectly safe, that we have evidence and we know the air is perfectly safe, don't worry about it, go right ahead, and that in 2 years later the EPA Inspector General came out with a report saying she had no basis for saying that, and she was sued, and in 2006 I have there that the U.S. District Judge Deborah Batts allowed a lawsuit against Whitman to proceed and called Whitman's actions conscience shocking. Yeah. But later on, that finding was overturned on appeal, and Whitman was not held liable for her comments, so she faced no consequences. And it's not only the VA scandal, it's not only the VA scandal, but it's also the too big to fail sort of like we're going to protect the the elites. They're not going to face any consequences for this.
That's what it feels like in terms of a lot of the military. Well, it's not my kid. I can buy him out of this situation, but you people, you're fine. Just go. And I don't know all the legal jargon. I don't know any of the legal jargon outside of watching a few CSIs. But when you say that about Christy Todd Whitman, all I think of is like, shouldn't she be held for like manslaughter? I mean, that's a murderous.
She should be ashamed to show her face, I think. I mean, it's unconscionable what she did, and but she faces no consequence, no social, no political consequences. She is, I'm sure, gets $15,000, $20,000 for speeches where she tours the country. I mean, I don't know what she's doing. She's in some think tank. But I mean,
so isn't this the type of thing that where President Obama, we were giving him a lot of crap last week about fundraising for 3 days in the middle of this whole everything with the Middle East and Russia and Ukraine and all that. Isn't this one of these things where maybe he could say, you know what, for the next 3 days, I'm going to fundraise for these people. He raised around $6 million for the DNC last week. He could just as easily raise $6 million for these people. Absolutely. So this is just this is just the worst kind of politics.
But that also sends the wrong message. Like we have to do special things for them. This should be built in.
But we should have to do special things for them.
No, it should be built into the federal government how we take care of these people.
But that didn't happen,
right.
and it's been 13 years. So now is the time for somebody to stand up and do something.
Well, that's Jon Stewart's job, isn't it?
I think that is Jon Stewart's job.
But the other thing is that this is also the consequence of the Bush administration failure to stop the attacks. And I mean, all the people who are dying in Iraq now, the VA scandal, the first responders, all the soldiers who died in Iraq. It's all because
the whole Middle East going up in flames. You could argue is because
it's a consequence of them ignoring the PDB in August 6, 2001, saying that people are thinking about flying planes into buildings.
Yeah.
And it's horrific.